Hi there and welcome to my kitchen again. It's been a while since we've talked. Today we're going to be making what you call a potato curry. And it's very simple. What I've done here is I've just chopped up 2 large potatoes into cubes. I've washed them and soaked them in water to avoid them turning black. I have 1 tomato diced here and we're just going to cook it all with various spices and make it into a potato curry. So to start, I have in this pot about 1 tablespoon of oil. And you heat your oil on the stove, and then into that I'm going to put roughly about half a teaspoon to a 3/4 teaspoon mustard seeds, black mustard seeds, and you can get this at an Indian grocery store. And if your oil is hot, then as soon as you put them in, you'll hear them sizzling, and you can probably hear it right now. And just tilt the pot forward a bit, so that will avoid the seeds kind of splattering everywhere because they do pop. Once that starts to pop, then you're going to put in another ingredient you get at the Indian grocery store. It's called asafoetida powder, or in Hindi you call it hing. And it has kind of a very pungent garlicky flavor, and I like it, so I'm going to put in quite a bit, but you could just put in a pinch. And by a pinch, I mean like just less than a 1/4 teaspoon, much less. Alright, now that that's in, the last thing I'm going to add is some turmeric. And a lot of people have probably heard of turmeric. It's very good for you. Put in about a 1/4 teaspoon right into your oil. And just slosh it around, let the 3 ingredients mix a bit. And then last thing we're going to do is just drain out the water from the potatoes and toss them into your bowl. Now keep a lid nearby or do it at your sink so you don't get oil everywhere. Whoops. Let's not use that. So now what we're going to do, before I add any additional spices, I'm going to add water to here. The amount of water you add is so that the potatoes are about almost completely covered by the water. You don't want them totally submerged because the potatoes will shrivel a bit as they cook. Or if you want it to be soupier, then you can add more water. But in this recipe, I'm going to say don't cover them totally, just so that the surface of the potatoes is exposed. And in the write-up on the website, I'll give some more concrete numbers, so that you know, for those of you who would like that. So now that we have the water in here, add some salt. You probably want to add about 1 tablespoon of salt. So I put that in. And then we're going to add some red chili powder, and again you can get this at the Indian grocery store. I've said this before, I don't like things spicy, so I don't put a lot, but if you do, then by all means go for it. But I'm going to say about half a teaspoon maximum. So I'll put that in. And then the next ingredient we're adding is a mixture of coriander powder and cumin seeds powder. I've talked about this before. Another item you can get at the Indian grocery store. I'm going to put in about half a teaspoon of that as well. Let's put a little bit more for good luck. And then the next ingredient we're adding is grated ginger. And I have it already ready and grated in this container. So I'm going to add, again, continuing with the pattern, half a teaspoon of grated ginger. So we're just tossing things into a pot. It's very easy. And the next thing we're adding, instead of sugar, we're adding jaggery. And personally, my taste is, in this type of dish, I like a forthcoming sweet flavor as opposed to salty. So I like to add a little bit more. So the best way, this is the size of the chunk I'm going to put in. I would say that this is the equivalent of about a tablespoon to slightly over a tablespoon of sugar. So let's put that in. You can always taste it later, and if you find that it's not sweet enough, you can add some. And if it's too sweet, then, well, next time don't put so much. And the last thing that I'm going to toss in, my 1 tomato diced. I've diced it very small because what you want is to be able to put in the tomatoes and they melt. And by melting, they'll make the gravy nice and thick. just give it a stir. So you can see that there is water, but it's not overwhelming. It's probably, you can still see the potatoes on top. They're not totally submerged. So at this point, my stove is still on high. I'm going to leave it on high uncovered until this comes to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, I would say turn it down to about low medium, put the lid kind of half on, and allow it to simmer until the potatoes are fully cooked. It's been about probably 20 minutes since we just put the potatoes into the pot and started it simmering. As I say, I had originally left it on high with the lid off, and when it started to boil, came to a boil, then I turned the stove down to low medium, and then I put the lid on like this just to crack open, and I left it simmering. So it probably took about 5 minutes to come to a boil, and then it was simmering like this for around 20. And you know that it's cooked because, you know, you can just test by picking up a piece of potato and just cutting it. It should be very easy to cut. It should be cooked. So at this point, what I like to do is kind of just break some of the potatoes a little bit. It'll just thicken up the gravy nicely. And then add a splash of lemon. I don't have fresh, so I'm using from a bottle. About like a tablespoon of lemon. I just give it a squeeze. That should be good. That's probably about a tablespoon. And then the last thing is we want to garnish with cilantro. And cilantro is just Italian parsley. You can get it at any grocery store, and I have it cut and prepared here, so I just take a handful. And I really like cilantro, so I'm very generous with it. It's a nice flavor. And that's it. We're done. Okay, so we added the lemon, we added the cilantro, and we're ready for our presentation. I've just poured it into a nice bowl here. I've garnished it with some more cilantro, and we can feed it to our guests now. This you can have with some roti or rice, or sometimes I just like to have it on its own. It's kind of soupy. So that's the end of this segment, I guess. I hope you learned something, and I hope you give this a whirl. Happy cooking.